I'm Hunter Atkins, CEO of the Bank of Nashville. Today's guest in the CEO Cafe is JimLackey. He is the CEO of Passport Health Communications, headquartered here in Cool Springs. Passport started with a small loan from the Bank of Nashville years ago, and you'll hear today about its ambitions both nationally and someday internationally in the communication process of healthcare. So I present to you JimLackey, CEO, Passport Health Communications.
Before we started the CEO Cafe, I didn't know anybody at the Bank of Nashville. Now I know a lot of folks there. They are good folks, and I've referred consistently clients to them who have all come back with glowing, satisfied stories. So I will recommend them to you without any hesitation. Part of what's going on in the economy right now seems to be tilting toward a little bit of a anti-business attitude, that everybody that's a CEO or an executive is somehow like the Enron folks, or everybody in finance and banking is a little bit like the Wall Street greed folks, or but getting to know people like Hunter and Roddy and JimLackey, and you see the caliber people they are, the caring that they and responsible attitudes that they bring into their business, and how they care about their employees. They want to do a good job and do it at a fair price and make it work for everybody. It's inspiring to see that. JimLackey in particular is one of the, we might all turn all those off. I probably need to remind everybody of that, because it picks up through the signal, even if it's on vibrate, affects these cameras somehow. But JimLackey in particular is one of the finest CEOs I've known, not just in terms of effectiveness, but just in terms of being a good person, and has this ability, I've told him before, to take a complex set of issues, distill it down to what's the problem, and then immediately shift into an action plan of, well, let's fix it. Let's get on with it. I'm real proud to introduce JimLackey of Passport Health, who is one of the fastest, in the 120 fastest growing companies in the country. It's right here in Cool Springs. It's a hometown success story that we can all be proud of, and we're proud to have Jim join me.
I appreciate being here. It's early, isn't it? God, did y'all drink coffee? How many of you are CEOs now? Raise your hand. How many of you want to be CEOs one day? Raise your hand. Okay. How many of you wish you'd never been a CEO? Okay, I got 2, 3. Okay. This is a good group. I'm not really, I've been to 1 or 2 of these, and sort of intimidated because of some of the prior speakers we've had, which were unbelievable. So I'm going to try. I asked the guys, I said, are y'all going to make me look good? And they said, no, we're just going to make you not look bad. And I said, okay, well, that's a good start. Jim Fuller, how many of you know Jim Fuller? Raise your hand. That's what I thought. I finally figured out yesterday, he's the human version of Facebook and LinkedIn. I mean, he happened long before. They just, made a technical version of it when they made that. The guy knows everybody, and we have breakfast once or twice a month, maybe 3 times if we can. And I mean, it's like, you just say a word, and he goes, you need to talk to blah, 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 blah. So if you don't know Jim Fuller, sign up today, right here, and he's good. So what I want to do is tell you a little bit about my company. I've sort of put 2 or 3 presentations together. I spoke to, I was telling Hunter, we got one of our new investors is a private equity fund. In these days of downturn, I was at this conference in San Francisco at the Ritz-Carlton under a tent, and these guys are crazy, man. They said, come to LA or come to San Francisco and speak for us. I said, hey, I will. So I booked my Southwest flight and got it done, and then they called me and said, no, we really don't want you flying on Southwest. We need you to fly first class. And I said, are you crazy? I said, you're paying for this, right? I'm not paying for this. They said, yeah, we'll pay for it. And so, I mean, Southwest, $250 bucks to San Francisco and back. Unbelievable. Can't get to Atlanta for that. first class on American, $1,800. That's crazy, isn't it? But anyway, the point being, these guys have $10 billion in asset under management and assets, and they did 4,000 cold calls on companies last year and invested in 2, me and 1 other. So I felt pretty good about that, but they made me fly Southwest back, so I must not have done a good job. No, I'm kidding. So this is a combo of something I did for them a little bit, just to describe where we were as a company, and something I did for a group of Owen students down at Vanderbilt, where they said, tell us what happens, you know, really in a company. So I thought I'd mix those up, because some of y'all are very sophisticated and some of y'all don't know what's going on. So I think it'll fit. So native in Nashville, I met a guy in California that said, you're from Nashville, right? Before I told him anything, he knew, some of you that grew up in Nashville, there's a really distinct accent. And I said, yeah, you're from Madison, right? And he said, you're right. And I mean, it was unbelievable. So grew up here, went to school in Oklahoma. My parents were from there. I was actually born there, but they had an undergraduate degree in healthcare. I always thought I wanted to be in healthcare. At first I wanted to be a doctor, but I flunked 9th grade Latin, so you know, I changed to business, you know, because anybody can do business, right? And so did that. Been married for 32 years. Steve Meek knows my wife real well, and some of you do. And we got married 7 weeks after we met. Okay, so I'm fairly impetuous. 3 sons, got 2 daughter-in-laws who are awesome. Took 2 of my sons off my hands. I got a 28-year-old. If any of y'all got hot daughters that you want to pass on. But this is the best part, 3 grandkids. I mean, if you don't have grandkids, that's something to look forward to if you can, because that is the best. You hear it, guy told me grandfathers don't have to do anything. Don't mess it up for the rest of us, you know, so it's really great. Been chairman, been running Passport really since its founding, and I'll tell you a little bit about the company before we get started. I love motorcycles and boats and cars, and I learned to fly about 5 years ago, which was really invigorating. I mean, when you turn 50, you're like, I guess I'm just dumb from now on. You know, I don't know how to do anything. But I learned to fly, and that was really, I went on and got my instrument rating. So it was really a great experience. I mean, I like to fly, but it was neat to know I can learn something, you know, and something that with an instrument rating, only 100,000 people in the whole country have one of those. So that isn't bad either. I really enjoy that. I always wanted to be in healthcare, but I told you I wanted to be a doctor. I really thought I'd like to be a pediatrician, and that 9th grade Latin wiped me out. So run a technology company. I never knew, some of you guys are close to my age, I never knew much about technology because there wasn't such a thing. You know, I mean, when we grew up, I worked for E&Y, Steve Meek and I worked for E&Y in 1980. There were no computers. I mean, there weren't any computers in the office except for except for something they ran billing on, but we never got to touch or see that. First PC showed up, Radio Shack, somebody brought from home and threw in our library, and we were just captivated by it. Everybody sat around waiting for the Radio Shack thing to come open. So I never really, I'm very interested in it. Our company's totally dependent on it, but it wasn't something, you know, we were just of the age that you didn't do that kind of thing, so it was interesting to me. Talk about healthcare. My company sells our services and products primarily to hospitals. We have sold, we've been going since 1996, and we've sold to now 1,800 hospitals we have as customers, and there's only about 4,000 in the country, so you know we've done pretty well in this period of time. And the kind of services we sell help hospitals not only control costs but also get paid faster by insurance companies and even the patients if the patients owe money, Medicare, Medicaid, etc. So I thought I'd set it up with healthcare. Everybody here knows healthcare is a problem. If you run a business, it's so expensive. If you go in and get something done, you're just flabbergasted. I had somebody ask me the other day, you know, why does an aspirin cost $9? You know, if you look at your hospital bill, I don't know, I've never seen a $9 aspirin, but supposedly that's what his bill said. And I said, that sounds pretty cheap to me, you know, and he didn't think that was funny. But there's a, you know, what I said to him was there's a whole regulatory, I mean, for that $9 aspirin, somebody is in the ER. I mean, there's a very expensive staff that has to sit in the ER 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, maybe with nobody coming in, but they still got to get paid, and there's so much cost in it, and some of it is ridiculous. The other thing I said was, because it's healthcare, you know, we had years ago, I was in a hospital and we got a bill for one of the hospital casters, you know, a little metal roller that goes on the bed. It was like $500 for a little metal roller. So everybody sort of, it's like the government a little bit. I think everybody sort of takes advantage of that. So it's going to take some drama really to start cutting healthcare costs. And I don't expect we're ever going to cut it, but at least level it off. But you can see we spend $2 trillion a year in the U.S. on healthcare. And now everybody's numb, you know. I mean, so what? We give Chrysler $500 billion. You know, I mean, all the numbers I think have gotten. We don't understand them. We're not impressed by big numbers anymore. So I try to think, what is $2 trillion? So when you compare it to other countries, we spend about twice what many of them spend per year and per capita. So we spend more. You know, a lot of reasons why, and I'll talk about that. It's 16% of the gross domestic product in the U.S., but guess what? That's sort of impressive. Some of the other countries are 10. I was in Germany and Sweden last month or 2 months ago on the Healthcare Council, and you know, they spend a lot less. Now, they got a lot of dissatisfied customers over there. You know, they wait a long time to see a doctor. You know, they don't get to see the doctor or go to the hospital they want, and they're real unhappy with that. And you can just imagine what U.S. citizens would do. We'd be revolting. In fact, what's happening over there is insurance companies are starting up. There are supplemental insurance companies, so if you're willing to pay a little more than the government pays, you can get into this, you can get to the front of the line, you know. So capitalism's taken over even in those countries that have the government health care. This was the most unbelievable one to me though. $2 trillion, these are the total GDPs for all these countries. So $2 trillion, you can draw a line under the number 7 country. Every country under that, their total GDP is less than $2 trillion. So we spend more on health care than a few big countries there, right? Russia, India, I mean, we spend more on health care than that. So that, you know, when we formed the company, we wanted to attack a problem that was pretty obvious and there. Started in '96, and really the whole goal was, can we build something to help the providers? We've always sold to hospitals and physicians and labs and, you know, anybody who provides healthcare. Is there something we can do, something we can build, you know, that would really cut out some of that administrative expense? It just seems crazy. Most people, most estimates I see are somewhere in the 30%. This is the saddest part of all of it. 30% of that $2 trillion is not spent on pills or, you know, casts or doctors seeing people. It's spent on trying to get paid. So it's spent on the paperwork that flows in all directions with insurance companies, hospitals billing insurance companies denying the claim, hospitals trying again, calling, emailing, all the stuff that goes on. So, you know, it's just a big, big number. We got 125 million, it's much more than that. That's probably 250 billion spent a year just on paperwork. You know, it's got nothing to do with healthcare getting done. One of our products that I'll talk to you about briefly in a minute is called eligibility. We actually have a product that a hospital uses to, instead of getting on the phone, calling an insurance company and saying, you know, John Jakeway just walked in, he broke his arm, he handed me his insurance card. Can you confirm that he's covered? Can you tell me about his coverage? Can you tell me about the copay, the deductible? You know, is his kid covered? You know, all the things that they need to know was a telephone call, you know, prior to us coming in. And we said, maybe this internet thing, when we started the company, it was all prefaced on the internet's coming and going to change the world. And healthcare could really use that communication capability that the internet puts in. So that's really how we built our product. But we call it eligibility, so that, you know, you can use our product to determine eligibility. And what we found is that one problem causes half the denied claims that are denied by by insurance companies is I've got the wrong, Medicare will deny your claim if you spell your first name wrong, if you leave out a middle initial. I mean, it's just going to, it's got to be perfect. So our products help make it perfect so that they can get paid. You like her? This is what most front desk people in hospitals look like. They are, if you worked at a hospital, you go, I know her, she works for me. But these little Post-it notes say, if it's Aetna and there's a blue card, you always need to call this 800 number first because they're going to want you to pre-cert anything that's in this diagnosis code range between here and here. I mean, it's just the most phenomenal process you can imagine. So all these books have all the codes in it she has to use, diagnosis codes, procedure codes, et cetera. All these files are people that she's got to go back and check on, et cetera, et cetera. So she's a pretty unhappy person. Many of the reasons are there. Most hospitals will deal with 25 to 50 different insurance companies. So you go to Williamson Medical down here, those guys see probably about 40 different insurance companies, Medicare, Medicaid, Blue Cross in Tennessee, all the surrounding states, Blue Cross, Aetna, Cigna, Humana, and every single one of them have a different 800 number, you know, a different place to call, a different form to fill out. And so why would she take that job? But anyway, clerical position usually, you know, she probably was handing out fries at McDonald's 2 weeks ago. You know, they usually bring them straight in, throw them in there. So a lot of training that needs to go on. Insurance companies, we had one client that would call, I'm not going to name the insurance company, but they needed to get things pre-certed. So there's certain procedures that an insurance company won't pay for unless you call in advance and get it pre-certed. We had a client that would call at 8 o'clock, put it on speakerphone and go to work, you know, and they said on average about 10 to 10:15 somebody would pick up the phone and say, pre-cert department, can I help you? So I mean, there's that kind of backlog and morass going on. A lot of processes changing. Unfortunately, most insurance companies have those desks open Monday through Friday from 8 to 5. So, you know, there's no way for a hospital that's somebody at Saturday night at 10 to get the answers that they need to treat, and a lot of errors, a lot of compliance. And what we did was we built a switch, okay? So we basically said, we can use the internet to let our clients come to us. We basically, in the early days, had to hardwire these back ends. So we had to go to every insurance company, and you can imagine, this is 1997. Most people didn't know what the internet even was, but if they did, they were scared of it, you know, because it was going to open up all my data to everybody. So we're walking into insurance companies going, hey, we're this little company in Brentwood. If you'll let us access all your information, we're going to put it on the internet, okay, so our clients can use it. And, you know, I can't tell you how many places I got thrown out of. And then they'd say, if they even listened to me, they'd say, well, how many hospitals do you have that's going to use this? We'll say, well, none yet, but you know, as soon as I get you, I know they're going to be dying for this, right? And so then you'd go to the hospital and say, why don't you use this, check eligibility, don't have to make any phone calls, real time, do it fast. And the hospital would say, well, how many insurance companies do you have? I said, well, none yet, but you're going to really be you know, they're going to be incented once I sign you up. So I've told everybody, I never thought about this, but think about the first fax machine salesman, you know? I mean, this guy like sells a fax machine to Jim, and Jim's going to ask, well, great, who can I fax to, you know? And we're like, well, the next guy I sell this to you. You got any ideas, you know? So, I mean, that's what I felt like. And so I knew there was somebody out there that had a harder job than me, but we actually got this done. I mean, our first client was a hospital in Springfield, and I swear to you, I just knew this guy my whole life. He was a CIO. I said, you got to buy it. Don't ask any questions. Right. Just sign here, and we'll worry about you paying me later. So he bought it. And then I went to TennCare in Tennessee and was able to get them to give me access. And if you know, at that time, TennCare is pretty messed up now, but it was real messed up then. So to have TennCare data made the hospital start getting interested, the physicians start getting interested, and again, today we have access to every single insurance company in the country, all of Medicare, all of Medicaid, all the Blue Crosses, but that wasn't easy to do, as you can imagine. The other thing we've done is we've added a lot of additional information. So Equifax will do credit scoring, fraud detection. LexisNexis is an address verification, has capability. So a lot of tools that our customers use to not only know are you covered under insurance, but are you really who you say you are, et cetera, et cetera. So that's been a lot. The other thing these things illustrate, we used to deliver through one source only. That was our web-based tool, but now we've integrated into the hospital systems, so we're integrated into any of the hospital systems. So Williamson Medical is an example, registers using their CPSI or whatever they use down there, and behind the scenes we're grabbing that data and checking our data and sending it all back. So it's adding a lot of value there as well. And I've just explained. Real time, this was our web base, this is our IntelliSource, is our integrated, and then the batch, we get tons a day. Vanderbilt's a great customer of ours. Vanderbilt pre-registers every patient about 2 weeks in advance is what they try to do. So if you're going in for an outpatient, inpatient that they know about, or for even a physician visit, they pre-register you. Every night they dump us everything they collected and we check it all. So we check insurance, we check the address, we check, you know, anything that we can to determine that it's right. We send them back a file that's mainly right, but then there's a smaller file that's wrong that they go to work on and fix before it comes. So that's our batch product. Now we're going to have a test on this later. Actually, I asked my product guy, this is why you need a lot of help, you know, for people like me that are dumb. Because he gave me this. This is our products. And I'm like, oh, well, great. I think I'll use that slide somewhere. And the thing I'll show you is really the hospital revenue cycle. Revenue cycle is a term that we use to really describe from the point that the doctor says you need to go to the hospital to the hospital finally getting final payment, you know, for the service that was provided, which can take from 2 weeks to 2 years, you know, to accomplish. That's really the revenue cycle, all the way from the front end through the processing of the patient, all the way coming through to the billing, and then to the final collection. So we've tried to develop tools. We've focused on the front end first, but we're developing tools to go across that. And so all our customers look like her, happy and straight. Some of y'all believe that. 1,800 hospitals, a lot of people selling. That's the one thing I learned in this company was if people don't come to you, you know, I don't care how good you are. Lesson number one is you got to be out there selling them. They won't come to you. I mean, I can't tell you how many business plans I see that the people don't even put down salespeople. I'm like, well, how are they going to know you're there? Oh, that's so good. They're going to be banging down the door. So I say, yeah, okay. So, you know, you got to fix that. We've always grown internally. Same store sales, that's a real important piece for us. When we started selling this, we decided, one, we're going to sell it on a per transaction basis. So when they check our data, when they come to us, they're coming through the web, when they query us, I go directly to the insurance company, wherever it is, and bring them back today's information. And it takes about 3 to 5 seconds to get them a response. I charge a quarter per. And you know, when I was doing 500 a month, that wasn't so good. But this year we'll do about 200 million of those. So, you know, that adds up and it makes it a lot better. And it's been a good model for us. When we're on the same page, if it's not good data, they won't click. If they don't click, I don't get paid. And then I get concerned, so I go get good data. So it's a great circle. Acquired our 4th company in May, and we went into Chicago. These guys have been doing this 20 years, very similar products. We could not get them out. I mean, everybody loved them. If I cut my price, they cut their price. I swear to you, they'd have paid the client to stay. You know, I'm like, I got to think of something else. So we worked hard and we were able to acquire them in May, and that's really been great. Recurring revenue is a big deal in our industry, and we got a 96%, which is pretty healthy. And we keep our customers. One of the things we do is we hire 2 customer service people before we had any customers. You know, I said, man, when the first one comes, I want them to love us from day one, and we have. One of the things I've done, I'd encourage all of y'all to do if you got the same kind of product on my website, which is what we have 60,000 unique users a month, so 60,000 customers come to us via the web. That's not even the IntelliSource. integrated product, and at the bottom of every page it says, if you got a complaint, if you got an idea, if you got some praise, why don't you tell our CEO? And when they click down there, page opens up, and I said, let's let them do whatever they want. It just says, hey Jim, and they can write anything in there they want. And I get about 5 a day, and I respond to all of them. I'll call them if I can't get them on email. And usually they're good suggestions. Some of them are problems. That forward feature on that email is great. Forward, somebody fix this, you know. But I don't get overwhelmed. I get so many people saying, are you crazy? You know, why would you do that? But I know before almost anybody if we got a problem, you know, and what's going on. So that's been helpful. I'm not a control freak, you'll learn, but I like to know if there's something going on because I want our customers to be satisfied. What I found out is our sales folks use that in the sales pitch. So they'll get down to the end of the sales pitch and they'll go, by the way, do y'all talk to your CEO pretty often? They're like, yeah, right. We don't even know who he is, you know, in these hospitals. And they'll say, well, you can talk to ours, you know, and they'll click on it and email me. So I got to be on the ball, you know, because they're using me in the sales pitch. Got to write back, you know, and say something because they want to know that it happens. But that's really been important for us. A lot of big customers. Locally, Vanderbilt's huge. We have, if you go to a hospital in Middle Tennessee, you're going to be using our product to check your insurance to make sure all of that's right. CHS nationwide, HCA in most of the hospitals, and you guys know a lot of these, QHR. Grady, if you know much about Grady in Atlanta, that's one of our customers, and man, they're something else. Health Management, HMA down in Florida has about 60 hospitals, so again, about 1,800 hospitals spread all over the country. We keep growing, which is, they tell me is really good. So somebody told me once, up and to the right's usually good, you know, and we've had a great time there. A lot of opportunity, a couple of new products. That, one I'll tell you about that I think is really cool is a patient payment estimator. How many of you have high deductible health plan at all? High deductible where you actually put it in an HSA or something like that. That's coming, and I think that's one of the things that may help us in the healthcare cost business. We've had it in Passport for a couple of years, and I mean, we sit around, I hear people sitting in the lunchroom going, hey, I got my Zocor at Walmart for $1 a pill. It was, you know, $1.25 over at wherever, you know, Kroger's. And they say, really, I'm going to switch over there. You know, and I don't know about you, but I never heard anybody care what anything costs. So, you know, I think I'm starting to see when you put it in your pocket, even if it's the same money, but we give it to you, it seems to start making a difference. Well, what's starting to happen in hospitals is people are walking in, registering and saying, how much is this going to cost? And I mean, next time you go to the hospital or a doctor's office, ask them that. And you will get the most blank stare, you know, you've ever seen in your life. Or they may even laugh out loud because they don't have any idea. Well, it can be done, you know, and we're building a product that basically looks mainly at history in that hospital. We compare it to what the insurance company's going to pay, and we built a product that actually can be presented to the patient that'll estimate what the cost is going to be, what insurance is going to be, and what their part's going to be. And you know, you got a lot better chance to get the money if you tell people, you know, in advance what it's going to be. So that's a pretty exciting product. The other one's the patient portal. Now with the internet, people are starting to finally, we built one of these about 6 years ago and threw it in the trash because like nobody did this. Now people are starting to say, I'd like to register in advance. I'd like to have it all done when I get there. I'd like you to just assign my room. I'll go straight to the room, you know. Hospitals are gonna have to turn more into like hotels, you know, where you're really the customer. We're gonna tell you what it's gonna cost. We're gonna get you in your room fast. You're not gonna have to wear that gown. You know, I mean, they're gonna make it more retail oriented or they're gonna go out of business. And so you can really see that coming. Focus on new sales, and we want to really be the healthcare community. And for us, that's the hospital, physician. We've got products we're starting to focus on the insurance company side. As you can imagine, I never charge an insurance company anything for this huge benefit I'm giving them. You know, Blue Cross of Tennessee, we do 500,000 transactions a month, you know, and I want to go to Vicki Gregg and say, do you know what 500,000 phone calls would be like? You know, I mean, it'd take them 200 people to answer 500,000 phone calls. So we're going to start turning around and trying to get paid by them as well, too, over the next few months. But partner of choice, we don't want to be a vendor. We want to work with the hospitals, which we do, and creating revenue cycle intelligence, meaning now we just tell you, yes, they're covered, no, they're not. We want to say, yes, they're covered, but did you know there's also this other insurance, and if that's his kid, that's not going to be, a lot of additional information that we can put together. And we want them to do better financially, but we want the patients to do better too. This is, nobody, we don't win if the patients don't win, and we're excited about that. I put down 2 pages for you guys, and this will be the last 2 pages. And I did this was more for the Owen guys, but I think for me it was really good to write it down. And 2 pages. The first one's sort of my steps to personal success as a company, I'm sorry. And then the second one's personal success. And as you can imagine, you can't separate those two very well, but the first one was, if you're going to succeed as a company, I can tell you, the first Christmas that we were in business, we ran out of money about 2 weeks before. We had one investor, local guy who loved us. I don't think he really totally knew what we were doing, but he loved us. And so Dan Proctor was our founder, and I told Dan, I said, get everybody to put their kids' pictures on the table in the conference room, and you're going to take them all over to Doug, and you're going to say, none of these kids are going to get Christmas if you don't give us some more money, and doggone he did, so we tried it the next Christmas. It didn't work as well, but, that's what we had to do. It was a little bit of begging, and I put in my own money, some of my own money too, but it's really personal. It's a lot of time, a lot of energy. One of the things we did from the beginning, and I think this is why we're successful, throughout our company, most of our employees used to work in a hospital or a physician office or an insurance company. So they understand what these people are going through, and so they understand that what we do actually makes their life easier, makes the customer's life easier, and that's real gratifying to us. See, I'm choking up. It really is. We're very, very passionate about the customers, and so you got to be proud of it. Have you ever tried to sell something you didn't think was really very good? It's not a very fun way to live, so we won't do that. Serve everyone, customers, employees, shareholders. I think a lot of people focus on the shareholders. I was telling somebody today, we had a new employee and I was making coffee, and they said, you make coffee here? We have 300 employees, I said, yeah, because I drink coffee here, and you're going to make coffee too. You're going to make the next pot, and everybody helps each other, and we serve each other. We think that's very important, and it's whether it's our employees or our customers stay with us because we treat them like they're very important. That's amazing how that works. I said make noise, really celebrate success. This is one, man, the bigger you get, the harder this gets. When there was 10 of us, I literally, one woman sold something, called me and said, and when I was right down the hall, she called me and she said, I just sold so-and-so. Well, I ran down the hall and I jumped up on top of her desk and started dancing, and she's like, are you crazy? I can't do that now, I'm too sophisticated, but it was easy to celebrate success then. It gets harder the bigger you get, and you sort of get numb to it. It's like, oh yeah, another 500-bed hospital, great. You gotta do that intentionally, and I think that's hard to do. And I say brag on yourself. Part of the reasons I was happy to do this now, all of y'all know about Passport, when you leave here, and I think that's really important to be proud of what you do and tell everybody you can tell. As a personal success, and this was my pilot example, man, if you ever stop, if you think you know it all, you might as well just go jump in the grave, because it's no fun anymore. And so never stop learning. Steve Meeks, a pilot, he and I sort of suffered through that together. And now I've inspired him to finish his instrument training, right, Steve? Okay, so, but you really don't want to stop learning. I think there's always something to learn. Take chances. There's never anything as fun as just doing something new, and saying this is a little risky. And you can tell from my background, I've never been afraid to do that. But I think it's something that a lot of people, the older you get, you know, you're just like, I'm not doing that. Expand on your talents, sort of figure out what you do well, and do more of it. You know, I mean, if you like talking to people, figure out how to do that more. You know, whether it's, you know, Toastmasters or whatever. If you you know, read a lot, if you research a lot, you know, really focus in on those things you do well, and I found that helps. And even though I already had the other slide, I think it helps you personally if you are always thinking about how do I help the company I work for succeed, and that's good for you because you do not want to do that. And my favorite, I learned this from my first boss because he was terrible. He would not delegate. I found out early on, people under you want to do your job, okay? People under you are good enough to do your job if you hire the right people. And I find that my rule is if somebody else can be doing what I'm doing right now that works for me, I'm giving it to them, you know? And that's not lazy, and that's not, you know, that's not doing your job. That's how you keep people motivated. That's how you keep them growing. And it's a lot more fun, I can tell you, than doing it all yourself. So I think that's one thing that I've learned. So that's it.
Well, you got a rare opportunity here to ask a rare CEO whatever you'd like, and I've learned a lot from Jim, and any questions you have, feel free to ask. One thing I've been impressed with is how open and transparent Jim is, and he keeps his company that way. When I was there yesterday, there was a satisfaction chart of employees, and it posted the last several years. Every year they'd put up the last several years of how are we doing with customer satisfaction. If there's a problem, you can just email straight to the CEO. You know, part of what I think we've gotten into as a country is there's the elephant in the room nobody talks about. Before you know it, there's elephants all over the room. Nobody will talk about any of them. But if you're transparent and get them up, get them on top of the table, talk about it, and have an honest attitude about fixing it, then you can get to it and move on. Any questions? Yes.
Healthcare data has always seemed like you couldn't crack it because of data security issues. So how have you solved data security, data encryption? What are your strategies? Do you use outside vendors? You know, how have you satisfied the users that this data is really secure?
I told you the early story of going to the insurance companies and saying, yeah, and insurance companies are the most, hope none of you work for them, but I mean, they are just tight. I worked for them for 10 years, so it helped me understand. But just, you know, if it wasn't invented here, it's not good, and we're not giving you anything you want unless we want to give it to you. So going to them and saying, yeah, we need to access your data, and we're going to put it out on the internet. I went through a bunch of audits, and so every insurance company's got this security department that all they do, I mean, they're like the CIA, you know, I mean, they'll just screen you and go through it. So they had to know our encryption was good. You know, they had to test it. We did a whole lot of that before they would even let us access. The other side of the coin is Medicare in particular is very, very strict. Before any of our clients can use the data, they have to be certified as a real employee. Their passwords, you know, go out of date every 30 days. You know, there's a very strict rules about that. The good news is most of our data, it doesn't have much in the way of diagnosis or healthcare stuff. Mostly it's about the administrative and the financial piece. So that's been good. I thought you were going in a slightly different direction, which is if everybody talks about the electronic health record, you know, why do I have to register at my doctor's office, and then when he sends me to the hospital, I got to start all over again, fill out all those forms again? Well, it's ludicrous and it's ridiculous, and there's no technical reason why that can't be done. The real problem is political. The real problem is whose information is that? Is that the patients? Is that the insurance companies? Is that the physicians? Who gets to add it in? Who gets to take it out? Who gets to change it? Who gets to see it? And it's really been, it's not a technical problem. It's just it's a coordination and almost a political problem, because everybody thinks it's theirs. So nobody wants to release it, and thus we're sort of stuck in this bogged down. I think what's happening is it's starting in little microcosms. Vanderbilt built their own. So they said, we have all this hospital, we got all these physicians, we can at least do it, you know, in that mix and know it's secure and feel good about it. And we don't have any political problems inside that 900 docs that they have and all the physician offices and all the hospitals. So they've started, and I think that's how it's going to have to be now. Baptist is going to have to say, okay, we'll hook to yours and then you can hook to ours, you know, and that's the way it's going to have to work. But it's a big impediment to progress, but it's sort of necessary too. I mean, I don't think anybody wants everybody to know all their health background. Yes, sir.
Hey, Jim, I want to commend you for success in your business. Fairly young, 12 years in business and doing quite a bit. And it says a lot for the Bank of Nashville to believe in you, invest in you. I know it makes you feel very well that you had a friend, you can knock on the door that was right down the street and they were right there for you. I'm quite sure within 12 years, with 10 cares I could recall, and I had a friend in the HMO business, that to some degree you had to have helped the state of Tennessee figure out how to manage the claims that came through 10 care and then went through the HMOs. So I'm quite sure that you were an asset to the state of Tennessee, and you could possibly still be an asset to them with the HMO and Medicare, Medicaid problem they were going through. You probably know my friend I'm speaking of, Access Med Plus.
You asked me the wrong question because I'm really passionate about one thing we do. Those 500,000 we do for Blue Cross Blue Shield that I told you about, that they don't pay us anything. 10 care, we do about 600,000 a year. And not only did they not pay me anything, I had to pay them 4 cents a transaction. So I worked for Bredesen for about 5 years, and I keep calling him saying, I got to be the only guy in the state, you know, saving you $10 million, and I have to pay you, you know, a couple million for that honor. Just make it even, you know. So that sort of bugged me, but that's okay. 10 care, I'm going to get over it, I think. But 10 care is always been a challenge, and Sam, you know, was really a awesome guy. He was the first guy we connected to, and really worked with through Phoenix and a couple others that he had, and so that was a great thing to do. One of the things we're doing right now, and this was fun, even though I'm still mad at them, they came to me and one of my biggest competitors. Between us, we probably do 1.5 million transactions a month. And he came to us, the state of Tennessee did, and they said, we've got all these kids that need to have this EPSDT testing, I think they call it, but it's early screening, early periodic screening, and you guys do it down there. And they came to us and they said, we can't figure out, we know who's had it and who hadn't, we don't know how to get it to the physicians. And maybe y'all can help. We said, maybe we can. So what we do now, we've already started, it was in the paper a couple of weeks ago, is that every time any physician, hospital, anybody in the state of Tennessee uses our system to check on the eligibility, et cetera, we tell them whether or not that kid's had their early periodic screening or testing done. So we've tied to that data, and we just make it available to that physician. So I'm pretty proud of that. You know, I mean, that's something that is a real service. They couldn't figure out any other way to alert the physician, this kid's due for another test, go ahead and do it now. So we started that a couple months ago, and that's been sort of fun. And we don't charge anything for that.
Early on, you said that one of the challenges is who is at the desk? You know, who's entering the hospital? How do we verify identification? Do you see a time when you can fingerprint or use a thumbprint to ID people across the country so that you even shortcut all of that?
Sure. I mean, we could do that today. One of the, I mentioned LexisNexis, some of y'all know, they bought a company that we work with called AccuRent. And those guys are scary. I mean, I went into their office when we were thinking about going with them, and you know, number one, the security you had to get into their office. These guys collect data on everybody, including everybody in this room, and it's a little spooky. So I can tell you that, you know, if it was legal and above board, we could do that today using their system. We actually, there's something called I guess it's the death database, and a lot of times my founder, Dan Proctor, some of y'all have met him. He's an entrepreneur, so he comes out with these ideas. He was the entrepreneur. I was the guy saying, yeah, but can you make money doing that? Well, he's always coming up with stuff, and so he found this death database. He said, one of the things when we check eligibility on a patient, we ought to just run it against that and see if they're even alive, you know? And I'm like, well, that's interesting. You know, what are we going to find? Well, we started running a bunch of data we do against it. We found, I can't tell you how many insurance people we found on Medicare, Medicaid, and commercials that aren't alive. These people are dead, you know, that are actually getting insurance. So we can't fingerprint them if they're dead, but I think that, you know, that it's amazing. I mean, there's so many, I didn't have it up there, but we estimate there's 30 billion transactions a year that occur between all these disparate players in healthcare, including the patients, and it's a phenomenal amount of data that flies around, but that'll happen one day, I think, for sure.
What do you worry about at night as far as your business?
I got asked this the other day. Somebody said, what do you worry about, what keeps you on your toes, which I hope is the same thing. And for me, I'm worried there's some guy in Alabama in a garage and he's building something better than what I got. You know, that's what I just sort of go, I know I did it. I mean, we did it. We started from nothing, and half of our customers come from our biggest competitor who, you know, sort of got big and lazy, and he was easy to take customers from. So I think that's what I worry about more than anything else is the competition. Yeah, Ray.
What kind of threat would be posed by the prospect of a single payer system? You made some kind of touched on that. Do you think that's untenable?
That's
in this
interesting
country?
you said that, because we were in Germany, where they got and Sweden, where they got a single payer system. It's the government, and a lot of people ask me that. And number one, in America, I'm not worried about it because it ain't going to happen before I'm ready to retire. So it's a long way off. But I think even in Germany and Sweden, what's been so interesting, the government runs the healthcare system there. They fund it, they pay for it. When you pay taxes, you get healthcare, and that sounds good. But what's happening is the market's taken over, and people aren't satisfied with the service they get or the wait times or anything. So these new insurance companies are coming in, private insurance companies are coming in, charging supplemental premiums, and then you can get into the better network and get service early and everything. So eventually they're going to need somebody like me to confirm that they actually have that private insurance. So I think I get asked that. The first investor ever put money in asked me that same question 12 years ago, and I said, you know, I guess we'll go out of business, but I don't think it's going to happen.
I've had the opportunity to work with Jim in some philanthropic ventures that he's done.
I can't even say that word, so.
And have been in his office a couple of times, and when you walk outside of one of his small conference rooms, there is a bulletin board that really has the satisfaction of his employees. And I did not see that in kind of your, you know, things of success. But every time I've been there, I've been very impressed that it's all trended, and the questions he asked his employees as far as their satisfaction and, you know, their enjoyment of work and the feedback. And I think that I would suspect that's a tremendous aspect of your success. And
we just did a survey. It's interesting. We bought a new company. We've had new investors. You know, we've had a lot happening, and we just finished a survey, and it was down a little bit, you know. And you're trying to figure out, and you know, it's down from 96 to 94, and you're like, that isn't so bad, but you still worry. That's 2%. What happened in there? And I think that what I worry about is you get too big to really give them personal attention, and you know, they don't know you, so they don't believe you when you say we're going to make it better and we want to fix this if you're there. I think also when you get bigger, you know, I've always said about 100 to 150. Anytime you get over that amount, any organization I've ever seen, all these different dynamics come in. You sort of get jealousies, you know, you get people infighting, and so you're just going to have some problems as you get bigger that you don't have when you're smaller. But I think just asking them is the first thing, you know. I mean, most of ours are like, wow, nobody's ever asked me that before, you know, and so I think that's good. She's tried.
I was going to encourage you in all your free time. I hope you can continue to talk and speak to, I noticed you said the Owen Business School. I have 3 sons as well in their 20s, and you have, to me, such a posture that is so non-threatening to our young people, and I work with young people trying to figure out what they're supposed to do in life. And I think they have watched the baby boomers, and we have a very frenetic look about us, and they don't want any part of it. It's not really been verbalized, but they're very disappointed in what this have more or make more to have more. So they're wandering and whatever. And as I watch you, it's so clear, it's so basic, it's very empowering people, which is what I try to do, is empower these young people. It makes sense, and you're not all over the map, and you're not all about you. And I'm sure when you go back to the office, you hit it running, but you, I think, have something to offer our young people in presenting.
I've spoken to quite a few of I love going to those classes. I told them all, I'm going to be nice to you because you could be my boss one day, but at a minimum, you're going to fund my Social Security. So, either way.
Check you in when you go to the hospital.
Either way, yeah, or not let me in, you know. So, but they're invigorating. I tell you, I'm not a student of this, but some of you guys probably are. But these different generations and the differences. I mean, I thought we were bad, and I'm not saying bad, but they are so specific on some things, and part of it is they don't want to do what we do. I think you're exactly right. They really are not interested in many of the things that we thought were so important, and I think that's good. But how do I motivate them? Because giving them a raise or some of that. I mean, everybody take more money, but that's not what drives them. I mean, I'll never forget. We did a survey. And I listed out all these benefits and said, pick one and we'll do our best to get it. And the write-in vote that won was, we want to wear jeans to work every day. And I'm like, done, so I'm a hero, so I mean, it was amazing to me, so yes.
What changes does you envision in the next 4 years with Obama's administration?
I went to I think the wisest thing I heard, I went to a conference that was put on by I'm on the board of the National Healthcare Council, and if you don't know who they are, they're not, it's just an impressive group of companies that form the National Healthcare group, and I'm going to speak to healthcare. I can't remember now if you asked that, but as far as healthcare goes, these guys, the one guy got up and he said, and this was before the election, so he didn't know who was going to win, but he said whoever wins is sort of going to be like a trustee in bankruptcy. I mean, he's really going to spend the next 4 years just sort of digging us out of what we're in right now. So I thought there was some wisdom in that, which I think what he was saying was, don't expect any big fixes in healthcare or anything else for the next few years, because we're just going to have to come up. I think some of the little things that are happening in healthcare work, and I mentioned the high deductible, and a lot of people don't agree with me on this, but I just think I've watched this for 30 years, and if we can put more emphasis and more responsibility on you, so that when you go to the hospital or need to go to the doctor, you think about it. Just stop just for 1 second and think, I'm going to have to write a $300 check today, if I get that done. I'm not saying don't go get it if you need it, but, in our current environment that we've grown up in, we didn't care what anything cost. I mean, our employer paid the insurance, and we might have paid a piece of it, and I think most of us don't understand how little a piece we paid, and we weren't invested in it. It's like, I paid, so I want it, and I want it all, and I want it now, and I want as much as you can give me, and that's going to have to, I mean, we're doing that. Part of the healthcare problem is we've done to ourselves, in my opinion. So I think that's one of the changes that I think will make a big difference. I think the government, I'm just not a big government fixing things advocate myself, but I think the free market most of the time is what really drives people. So.